Brent, I might have filled my glass up a little too much this week. I might have
Okay.
filled a little too high. There you go. Oh, that
Oh,
looks nice.
it's more than mine, actually.
It did look like it. Well, you got some ice cubes in there.
Dude,
Yeah.
in fact, I have a little station behind the camera here, behind the scenes backstage.
Oh yeah.
So I've got this little number.
Yeah.
I've got a refill.
Oh, you got your refill station. Yeah.
But I've also got this. You can hear it.
Oh,
Can
can't
you
see
see
it.
that?
Pretty blown out. What is that? Ice? Did I hear ice in there?
It's ice. It's full of ice. It's like a Starbucks insulated cup.
You don't have to go anywhere.
I don't have to go anywhere.
you brought it to yourself.
I'm also wearing a catheter. I'm here for like 6 hours. Try the veal.
You're such a pro. We got 3 albums to talk about this week.
Yeah.
All right. So this might be a bit longer. I know our episodes are generally about half an hour. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah.
But we are finishing off the David Lee Roth era of Van Halen.
We are. So we do have a lot to talk about. I want to give equal attention to each of these records because I think that they are pretty, each of them is pretty pivotal. Fair Warning particularly.
Yeah.
And I don't, we're going to approach this through the prism, as we always do, of your perspective.
Yes.
Okay. So Fair Warning. So we left off with Women and Children first.
Fantastic album.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
It's
right.
the best.
So you can see, and we talked about this last episode, that you can see that was kind of the nexus of Van Halen, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't really get much better than that. If
No.
you're talking about Roth-era,
Not at all.
Sammy Hagar is completely separate. We're not going to get into that. It's a completely separate chat. Let's start off with how you felt about listening to Fair Warning, and then I'll kind of jump in.
You ready for this? All right.
Yeah.
Kicks off with Mean Street.
Yes.
Killer opening. So Mean Streets was like sick. And then Roth started singing.
And what, in Mean Street?
Yeah, in Mean Street.
Okay.
And there was just something that felt really off about his singing with this song.
Really?
And I'm going to be honest, it went downhill from there. I've given, so I'll say out of the 3, Fair Warning, Diver Down in 1984, this is my least favorite of these 3.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So
And
that's very interesting to me.
yeah, because I mean, there's maybe 3 good songs on this record, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And let me just cover that up with, this is, I'm keeping in mind that this is Van Halen, and everything that Eddie does is fantastic. So, so to put in, I guess, a little bit of a perspective, like when I say 3 good songs, no, all of these songs musically are, this is going to sound so contradictory, incredible. Like when you listen to the way that they're played, when you listen to Eddie playing, like he's great. He's a great guitar player, the way that he does everything. But I just could not get into many of these songs. Like I just couldn't. I mean, Mean Street, Sinner's Swing, and Unchained.
Okay.
Those are the 3 like songs that
songs that you think are passable.
Exactly. And I can't help but think that Roth listening to Sunday Afternoon in the Park was just like, what the fuck is this? Because
Totally.
I'm just like, I'm listening to it and I'm like, yeah, all right, sure. Like, I guess it's cool, I guess, if I wanted to, but I'm like, what is this?
Mhm.
What is this? And that's how I felt about a lot of these songs. And, and then One Foot Out the Door, it's just a bad song. Like I love the way that Van Halen merges like Eddie's instrumentals into their songs. They do that a lot, and I think it works.
Yeah.
But One Foot Out the Door is like, you can't ask for it to be over soon enough.
So it's funny that you say that, because that is the, we talked about skip songs, right?
Oh yeah.
Going back a couple of episodes.
Oh yeah.
But I love Van Halen. I'm a devotee. Like
Yes.
Van Halen is probably one of my favorite bands. That is, and it's sacrilegious to think that I would skip a Van Halen song, but I would skip One Foot Out the Door. It just seems it was tacked on at the very end of the record. It seems like it's not even a Van Halen song, right? Like Roth is talking about like sneaking into some girl's house and screwing somebody's wife or whatever it is. It's a shitty song.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I've never liked that song. It's terrible.
Well, now, so this album is meant to, I guess, have been, thought of as like their concept album, or could be looked at as a bit of a concept album. Did I read that correctly?
I don't know if it is. I think that what it is, and going back to Sunday Afternoon in the Park, that was Eddie Van Halen saying, I don't want to be a guitar hero anymore. I want to start playing keyboards because he could play the piano. And I'm going to introduce this. And it was like this dark kind of, message to Roth saying, this is how I see it anyway, saying this is like coming. So get ready for it. Right. Because it's very plodding and like, boom, boom. It doesn't fit on the record at all. It's kind of weird. And you kind of wonder why it's there. It's the second last song on the record. And then that throwaway, one foot on the, or One Foot Out the Door is on there. So it's almost like, it's just a very strange thing, but you can tell that weird things are afoot in the Van Halen camp when you listen to this record, particularly that area. Right. And there's so many tells that you can tell that things are kind of falling apart for Van Halen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you guess where it is? Do you know?
The fact that the last song is called One Foot Out the Door.
That's a big one. I guess there's a lot. There's a lot, right? But here's a big one. So Push Comes to Shove.
Okay.
So the name of that song obviously is a gift, but the first, so think of the song. So it starts and it's like dun, 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 right? And it's the breakdown of David Lee Roth. He's done the previous ones where he talks about like, fun stuff like, hey, I like the way the line runs up the back of the stocking. Whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He starts this one out by saying, does it feel cold in here?
Yes.
Did you notice that?
Yeah,
right? Totally. And then he says, what does he say? Does it seem cold in here to you? Is there anything left in that bottle? What's there to do tonight? Anything? And it just seems like he's dejected, and he's kind of had it. He's kind of looking around thinking like, it's not working. And that was the vibe that I got from it, and it's like push comes to shove, and the whole, just kind of represented the whole record. It's kind of, there's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of, negativity.
How do you get here after Women and Children First? You have such an incredible album, and then you come into Fair Warning, and now all of a sudden there's these what seem like problems in the band just after this, what we would consider the best Van Halen record. Like what got them there? I just and Warner never had, there was never a top 40 hit off of this album, and
slow selling record too.
Slow selling,
but the Roth-era.
But one that so many like big fans look at this album and think is like one of Eddie's best. It's like people look at this album and they think this is one of Van Halen's.
Oh, in my perspective, it's not a bad record. I mean, I like the songs. I like Sinner Swing. I like Push Come to Shove. I like, Unchained is an anthem.
Totally.
Right? And it's almost like Anthem or Unchained doesn't fit. It's very odd because it's anthemic Van Halen again, right?
Yeah.
So This Is Love is Roth kind of as a showman again. So it's kind of a disjointed record, but it's got a dark overtone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the beginning of the end, essentially.
You can, the fissures are there. You can see the cracks
Yeah.
forming. And I mean, you think about it, Alex, like you think these guys are on the road together for a year between, here and the Women and Children First tour. And that's tough, right? With big personalities like Roth's and Eddie Van Halen, there's a lot of pressure on him to be a guitar hero, and so there's a lot of tension constantly in interviews, Roth, talking shit probably, and Eddie just going, Jesus, he's embarrassing me or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And there's constant tension for a year. So
which is kind of crazy. And again, I'm going to jump ahead here, but just in watching even, and I know they're music videos, but for, Jump in Panama from 1984, they look like they're having a blast. I mean, Roth looks higher than the Eiffel Tower, but like they still, like you mentioned before, like Eddie's always smiling, and it's like, it's hard to even tell what kind of could have been the issues going on there. Like, because now your two albums, you're past Forewarning, you're past Diver Down, which we'll talk about, which had its own issues in its own right, and then you still got 1984, which is like what a the hell of a send off of an album to get for that band. But so I was listening to it. I'm like, how did you get here, and why does everything feel so disjointed? But I mean, like, Sinners Swing and Hear About It Later. Like, I know I didn't say Hear About It Later is kind of one of those top songs, but like then you get to the chorus of that and you're like, I don't want to hear about, like, it's got a groove to it, I'm
glad you said that, because it does have a groove. It's really interesting, and that's kind of this it's representative of this album in my mind, because I like the groove of the entire album, but the lyrics are representative of the fact that there's, the problems, right? So I don't want to hear about it later. It's like a negative connotation. Well, I don't want to hear about it. It's almost like there's bitching in the camp. I don't want to hear about it, right? But the music is like, I don't want to hear about it later. It's fun, but underneath there's stuff going on.
Totally. Yeah. What was it? Because again, Eddie wanted to do things on this record that Templeman wasn't really like a fan of him doing, overdubs being one of them. He wanted to go and do that. But a couple episodes ago, he said, I was stoked on the fact that they didn't do a ton of overdubs, and that, like, because they couldn't do what they weren't going to go perform live what they weren't able to perform live, because of so many overdubs. And then, Eddie wanted to get in to start doing that. And, it was kind of had to push back, and, that they'd be fighting. And then as you get into Diver Down and, Templeman and Roth kind of going in and recording on their own. And it kind of is like, I don't know, it kind of shines that light on like what's more important to certain people in the process. To Eddie, it was artistic integrity. He wanted to do whatever it is he wanted to do, and it sounded like that's what the band wanted to do for the first 3 albums. But then when you got through Fair Warning and there's no top 40 hit, then you get into Diver Down, and Roth and Templeman are like, well, no, we got to get in. It's about top 40 hits. And Eddie's like, I just want to play the keys, like, and I want to bring a new feel to it. And when you think about that, when I do, I'm like, man, that's almost, as he continued to be a trailblazer in music, like him bringing in the keys, was almost the future as well. Like later into the 80s that's where it came to. And then when you go and you listen to Roth's first full length album, there's keys all over the place.
I know. See, that's the funny part, right?
Like, what is he getting away from?
Well, and especially later on Skyscraper, there's a lot of keyboards, right?
Totally.
On Eat 'Em and Smile, there's a lot of guitar because it's Steve Vai. So
hearing that Steve Vai was playing on it, I'm like,
yeah, well, you knew that was going to happen. Though. You knew Roth was going to like get ringers in,
right?
Like, obviously, and that's the funny thing about 5150, the next Van Halen album after Roth was gone, is the positivity came back, right? So you had like Dreams, Best of Both Worlds, Get Up, Summer Nights, and all the songs were like, right? It's almost like Roth is gone. Like, let's have a good time now. It's all fun again.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like, not Van Halen. That's for sure.
It's a different band. And I don't say that in a negative way at all. I love Sammy Hagar. I just think that Van Halen is not Van Halen without David Lee Roth, just because he contributed so much during his period there. And for me, as a real fan, I just thought it's not the same. It's, Hagar with Van Halen, with Eddie, Alex, and Mike was fantastic.
See,
but it's not the same.
You could have replaced Hagar with Michael Bolton, okay, or Kenny Loggins. Like, that's what you could have done with post Roth Van Halen, right? That to me is what 5150 sounded like, was every other band in the 80s. Like, that's what I took away from hearing Hagar sing on that album. At least it was not playful. It was not Roth. Like that's that, and then that's what I took away from kind of going beyond the Van Halen or the Roth era.
It didn't have that urgency. It didn't have that kind of dirty, guttural kind of integrity that it did when they first started out. And maybe you can replicate that. I don't know, because, the guys were older then and all that stuff. But it didn't have that immediacy to me. It just seemed it was just a different thing. It had a different application, Alex. That's the thing. It had a different application, and I would consider it a different band.
Yeah. So I think in the end, Brent, fair warning, it just wasn't made for me. That's I gotta say it.
No, it was not made for you. Not
made for me.
So yeah. So let that piano drop off your back.
Thanks.
And you don't have to criticize it.
Thanks. You got it. I'll do that. Do you
feel better?
I do feel better. But waiting all day to drop that one. So that's, I don't know, that's fair warning for me. I not an overall enjoyment. I went back, I listened to it numerous times and just was not excited. I was not excited to listen to Fair Warning. I was excited to listening to the opening riff of Mean Street.
Right.
And then from there it was like, yeah.
For me, I like the vibe of the record in terms of the groove, right? So you listen to, I don't know, songs like Dirty Movies. And I see that's a funny one too, because Dirty Movies is supposed to be, it's about sex. And typically that's a very fun topic, right? Especially when Roth is involved. And yet it's not in this, it's kind of glum. There's a glumness about it. So it's just really interesting. I like the record, but there is a dark hue about it. It's even the album artwork.
I was just going to say that
is like grim, right? It's getting punched in the face on the front. So it's almost like they're sending these kind of messages to us saying like, there's problems, right?
Well, and that was like, I did some research into that cover. I'm not sure. Do you know much about the cover of that album?
I don't remember the artist's name, but they took, I think, a section of one of his paintings. It was the top right section or whatever. I don't remember the dude's name, but yeah.
Yeah. Michael Kulicki, I believe. Kulicki or something. Canadian.
Yeah, he's a Canadian guy. That's right.
Canadian guy. And so essentially, I guess that was a look into his mind. So he was placed in psychiatric care after cutting his wrists. And so then when he was in the institution there, they gave him a room to do his art, and he drew this piece, which that's the Van Halen cover is like a piece of that.
Is it like a cross section of his skull or something?
So yeah, the whole image is essentially a self-portrait of him laying in the ground. His skull his head is cut open, so you're looking inside of his head, and all of these moments are happening inside of his head that relate to his life and his upbringing. Exactly. And it's almost like a mouse maze. So, and then the mouse is sort of like central to that art piece. And they said once he illustrated that, and then he was able to talk about it, he got better and was able to leave, and he ended up having a family. And then he drew another painting after that of a family like sitting in a field having a picnic.
That's right.
And then there was like, you could see in the bottom left corner, there was like the skull with like from that representing his past. But then on the right, there was like a storm coming in because it was representing like what he thought was going to be like a nuclear war happening at the time of like at that time in the world. So
yeah, a lot going on.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, a lot going on. So yeah, but yes, otherwise that frame is and Alex Van Halen, that's something that stood out to him. So you know that there's like you know, there's problems with Eddie and Roth, and you know, Alex is feeling this, so he's like, this artwork would be great. So yeah, and then I'm sure Michael Anthony was just like, things are good, I'm good.
Oh, he's the guy. He's the pacifist in the band. He's like, hey man, I'm just here to play bass and drink beer, and I don't care.
Isn't that every bass player?
Totally, really, right? Well, except Nikki Sixx.
Let the comments flow in. Let the comments flow in.
I'm just gonna hang out over here. Bass player. And it's mostly, right?
Yeah.
Especially him though, because he was just, and I gotta feel bad. But, you know, this is probably a separate episode, but he kind of got the short end of the stick.
Oh, did he?
Oh, totally.
I don't know the story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on.
All right. Diver down. Yeah, just another red light, just another glaring.
Like, oh, you didn't like it?
We got a problem. Oh no, I just meant the title. So
can we talk about the title for a second? Do you know how the title came about?
No, I don't.
So 2 theories. Obviously there's a sexual connotation.
Okay.
Right. And if Roth is in charge, you know that he was responsible for that. Eddie was always he just kind of said, I just want to play. Like, you do what you want, Roth. You can call the records whatever you want. And he just kind of let things go. Right. He didn't pay a lot of attention to the lyrics and all that stuff. And Roth kind of stepped up and you know, commandeered that stuff. So I think Diver Down, I don't know, but I think it was Roth's doing. Sexual connotation 1, but 2, he said in an article Roth did, Diver Down obviously is from, you know, it's a flag that goes up when there's an actual diver in the water, right? Just so that, you know, there's a diver under there so he doesn't get chewed up by the, you know, boat rotors and all this stuff. So his metaphor was, there's stuff going on underneath that you can't see, which is pretty telling, right? So somebody asked him, why Diver Down? Well, you know, there might be stuff going on that you can't see underneath. And just kind of like another cryptic, you know, kind of communication on Roth's part. Like, there's stuff going on here. The band is breaking up.
Like, you never want to judge a book by its cover, but when you look at Roth, you don't think like, you know, supreme intellect, right? When you see him and you know, the way that he acts and jumps around, and then he kind of come out with that, and he's like, oh, maybe, you know what, it's like, there's just but there is something there. I mean, and we know he came from a pretty good family as well, but it just, for some reason, he's
it's funny because he's a paradox. Roth. He is extremely well read. He is extremely worldly, and cultured. But he's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah,
like, he's insane.
Yeah,
he doesn't know where he is. Seemingly, like he's in interviews, and like, you know, before the light goes on, he's kind of like, okay, he's rolling up his sleeves, and he's like, you know, and he's bizarre.
Yeah,
and yet, like, he can speak several languages. He was an EMT for a little while, just because he wanted to see if he could do it.
Man, that's cool. Yeah,
you know,
that's great.
He's fascinating.
So this album, the first time I listened to this album, I was kind of like, what is this? Okay, I should just fully transparent. I was like, what am I listening to? Like, I get it. I get the covers. I get it. But I had to listen to Diver Down 4 or 5 times. Okay. To really like think like, yeah, you know what? I want to put Diver Down on because it's fun. You know, but like the first time I listened to it, I'm like, what is this? What were these guys doing? What was wrong with these guys? That's what I was thinking. And then again, just like Van Halen 2, it grew on me. And again, still though, Secret, I'm not a big fan. Where have all the good times gone? Like, not okay. Like, Hang 'em High it's great, and I know that's an old song. I know that song goes back, and that is that's an awesome track. Like, so that's a standout for me. And then Secret and is okay. It's not, it is what it is. And then they do the same thing with Intruder going into Pretty Woman. And I love these covers. I think the covers are great. And Pretty Woman's nothing special. It's cool to hear them play it. But Dancing in the Street, that's almost a Van Halen song. Like that, right? That is,
they made it their own.
Such a good cover. Little Guitars is really cool. I like that. Yeah, it's a fun song. Yeah, hey, senorita. Yeah, it's fun. I don't know what I do and try to sing.
That's like Roth. It's just like, it's good times. No, I my perspective on the record, I love the whole thing. It took me a little while. When I first heard it, like you, I thought like it's very broad, right? So there's heavy songs like Hang 'em High is it's got that heavy riff. But then there's like Sweet Bad or Big Bad Bill, which is kind of weird, right? But that song came from the idea, and this is kind of, again, the Van Halen ethos of like, who cares? We're not bound by any kind of label or branding. Roth heard that song on the radio, and he's kind of into all that old stuff, and he thought it was funny, and he brought it to the band and said, hey, this is like badass stuff, we should try this. And the rest of the band's like, okay, like it could be really stupid, but like, let's give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
And then Roth said to Ed and Alex, he said, your old man could play like a clarinet on this. And they thought about it, and they're like, actually, yeah, that would work. And they brought him in, and he did it. And wow. It was just such a wonderful moment on that record, right?
Yeah.
But it just adds to the album's overall breadth for me, because like I said, there's Hang 'em High and heavy tunes. Pretty Woman is an Intruder is aggressive, but then there's light stuff like that. Van Halen is just so amazing at touching all those bases, right? It's a great summertime record for me. And when I go through all I love Secrets. I think it's a very sweet song. Apparently he got some of the lyrics from a postcard that he obtained at an Albuquerque truck stop. Roth, he just picked it up out of the thing, and it said may your moccasins make happy whatever. And he just kind of interpreted those things into the lyrics on the tour bus. I don't know. It's a completely disjointed record. It's broad. It covers a lot of ground, but it's a fun record for me.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, honestly. Like when you think about a band putting an album like this together, if you want to shit on it, you certainly can. But it's still Van Halen. I don't know, you know what I mean? I know I said there's songs I don't like, but what's wrong with it? Like when you listen to it, what is wrong with it?
It radiates fun. It's a fun record. People take shots at it because it is disjointed and it's not uniform. It's not like, Van Halen 1 and 2 are full out rockers, right? Yeah. It's just guitar all the way through.
Yeah.
There's no clarinet. There's no cathedral. It's not diverse. And for me, it's the most diverse, or it's the most accessible Van Halen record, just because it seems like the guys are having fun. And like I said, it's a great summertime record. Like when the sun is shining, I put that album on, and it's like, wow.
Which is crazy that it seems like a fun record, because it was like, I feel like everything surrounding the production of this record is not fun. I feel like Eddie was in a bad place. He didn't want to perform any of these songs. He didn't want to do any of these tunes, or, some of them. Obviously Cathedral's his song, but I know he didn't want to do Dancing in the Streets. Couldn't figure out what he could do for it. He's a riff driven guy. He couldn't figure out a riff. He didn't want to just play power chords. So, and then I'd mentioned, Templeman and Roth went in and recorded things behind his back. And this recording of this record was really the the impetus for him to go and open 5150 and start doing it himself.
Well, I don't think it was a real, until it actually came out as an official record. I don't think it was considered an official record, because I think there was a couple of opinions that were opposite in terms of like the album coming out. So what I mean by that is, I think that Roth wanted to put out Pretty Woman as a cover, I think because it had to do with another project. And then it was almost like, okay, we're going to put this out as a single that's going to carry us through to the next record. And then like Hang 'em High was kind of hanging out back there. And they said so anyway, this thing was very kind of chock-a-block, and they put it together. And then they said, well, let's just kind of put this out. And the album came out. And that's why it sounds very diverse. And there's all kinds of stuff on it, because it kind of came together as kind of a melding of a lot of things.
It was recorded very quickly, like right after the Fair Warning tour. What happened between Diver Down in 1984?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a full kind of division between Roth and the Van Halen brothers at the time, particularly Ed. And Mike was kind of in the middle. Like again, the bass player is just kind of like floating around going like, are we playing?
Let me know when to show up, guys.
Yeah. So Roth was getting involved in movies, and he wanted to do a movie. Eddie, I guess was, they were involved in, drinking and all that stuff. And he built a studio called 5150 Studios on his property at his home. And for a little while, he didn't really want Roth to be, a guest in this place. And so he said, we're going to record the next record here. And I think that Don Landy was the engineer and Templeman was the producer. And I think that he told those guys that they were welcome and Roth could kind of come in and do his bit, but he didn't want him hanging around or whatever. They were not, they were on speaking terms, but like there was acrimony, put it that way. And what it ended up happening was that Templeman was kind of in the Roth camp saying, we got to bring this guy in. Like, we can't do this, right? The band is falling apart. What can we do to kind of keep it together? And Don Landy and Eddie Van Halen came up with most of the 1984 record. And then Roth came in after the fact and literally had to like kind of knock on the door and say the secret password to gain access into this place, and came in and did the record.
1984, to me, is a really, really good album. And maybe that's my pop sense, my pop music sense, the years of listening to pop radio kicking in here, and why a lot of the Van Halen fans listening to this will be like, wow, fuck you, Fair Warning's way better than 1984. Probably to you, that makes sense. It's just like your opinion, man. But, like 1984, like the way even leading off with that, and then the way it gets into Jump, again, they just do a great job of Eddie having these instrumentals that are like so good. And even with Diver Down, from little guitars intro into little guitars, and then Intruder into Pretty Woman, and then Fair Warning, Sunday Afternoon in the Park, into One Foot Out the Door. And even before that, I can't obviously think of it off the top of my head what would have bled into each other in those other albums, but
your glass is too full.
Yeah, Tora into Lost Control. It's fantastic. So I thought it was really cool. I'd never heard this intro to Jump, which was awesome. Jump, obviously I've heard that song like almost my entire life because it's Jump. Yeah. Same with Panama. But when you listen to them, they're still great rock tunes.
What's your favorite song from 1984?
I'll Wait.
Really? Wow.
Top Jimmy's pretty sick though.
I like it.
But I'll Wait. I really liked it. It felt like it was like, it could have been used for like Karate Kid. It could have been used for like, I don't know, Back to the Future, or,
absolutely.
something
like
where it was
super 80s tune.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought it was fun. And I think, and I just felt like it was different. Like it was just kind of like different, like Hot for Teacher is so cool too. Like it's obviously, it's Hot for Teacher. I mean, the drum, like you could, I still try and wrap my head around how Alex played the drums to that song. and the way that everything just the riffs kick in and then it slows down, like the composition of that song is perfect.
It's a big drum sound on that record, by the way, too, right?
Yeah.
In 5150 Studios.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, his brother owned the place.
That's right. Yeah, let's kick the drums up a notch there. Yeah.
Oh, they sound amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and they're at the forefront. You know, not before Eddie's guitars, but they're out there a lot more so than they were in previous records.
Totally. What I've learned from listening to these albums is just how absolutely incredible this band was. Like, just amazing. I mean,
unspeakably.
Right? I mean, they had 6 albums. Like that, like that's like, I know that's a lot, but you could also think that's it. Like that's all that Roth-era had. And then you guys went your separate ways and did what you did, and you're like, why don't you just work your shit out or get back together? Like take a break and then get back together, because I don't think what either of them went on to do. I need to listen to more Hagar, but based on what I heard from 5150 and from even Roth's, initial EP with like fucking California Girls on it,
just a gigolo.
Like the guy already tried to do his best Louis Armstrong impression on what was it, on one of the Diver Down songs, right? That like, Big Bad Bill, that's what he tried to do. And then like,
sorry, so just to comment on that, those guys were very highly influenced by Black musicianship.
Yes.
Right? And Steven Tyler himself has said, the reason why I sounded the way that I did is because I wanted to sound Black.
Oh, wow.
Because these guys listened to Nat King Cole and they listened to Louis Armstrong and the guys, and they wanted that to come across in their voices the way that the same way that Mick Jagger did.
Yeah.
Right. Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones sold Black music back to American audiences, really.
Totally. I mean, the whole first album wasn't the radio album, was like, maybe one of their own song, 2 of their own songs, if that. But otherwise, yeah.
But as they went, Jagger delighted in sounding like a Black musician. Like he was very proud of himself in doing so, and Roth and everybody else was equally proud. It's funny, and that's just the thing. And I think that's kind of very interesting and cool, because it kind of like visually gets very much overlooked, sadly, maybe, but it's there, and you have to pay attention to that.
Totally.
You make a good point about those bands breaking up, and maybe they should get back together. But think about Guns N' Roses. It's the same thing. I like the fact that those bands had to break up, and they did get back together. And I don't always agree with that, but the thing that broke them up might have been the best thing that happened to them, because they were explosive. They brought in different personalities, and those personalities kind of clashed with each other. And that's what made great music.
It did.
Yeah.
That's my response to that. It did. It's great music. I might not like the songs, but when you listen to it, there's no way you can't appreciate the musicianship and the musicality on any single one of these songs.
But think about Van Halen's catalog with Roth, and think about the personalities and how they work together. And that was the true magic of what Van Halen was during the Roth-era, really.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and that's why I say with Hagar, great band, but not the same. You shouldn't have called it Van Halen. It could have been called Van Hagar. And I think that was suggested to them, and I think they turned it down, but it was different.
One thing I wanted to say, we had mentioned at one point that Van Halen was not influenced at all by Aerosmith. I heard a little Aerosmith influence
in
Dirty Movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. like I got a real Steven Tyler. What's the
That
word?
actually sounded like Aerosmith, the way that you
Right?
did it.
Yeah. In the back of the limo. Like the way that Roth goes through some of the verses in Dirty Movies. Take a listen again.
Yeah,
And
I know it in my head. I
you know what
get
mean?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to it. I was like, that could have been Last Child. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That's a very astute observation on your part.
Oh, thank you. That's
that
what
that didn't occur to me before.
Yeah, that was one part that I was like, man, like this is. I know we said that there was no real Aerosmith, and I don't think there is anywhere else. But just in those verses of Dirty Movies, that's what I got.
You could be right about that.
Yeah.
Wow, that did not occur to me at any point. Look at you. Wow. See, credibility not lost at all.
Restored.
Not restored.
Well, that was fun, man. Van Halen is great. I'm so glad that I went and listened to these because I'm can't wait to put it in front of my kids. I sent you a video already of my son dancing to Mean Street.
He's a rocker.
He loves it, man. He loves it. He also had a chocolate donut about 10 minutes before that.
Maybe that played a small role in his enthusiasm.
But this was great. I would never have thought to go and listen to them. And this was just so enjoyable to listen to these guys. As much as there were songs I didn't like, I was also just like so excited for what was coming next. So thank you.
So how did you come away from it? Like, you listened to all the records and we talked about it in detail. So, when you walk away from this, what are you going to think about, Van Halen? What was your general perception of it? All things considered.
At this point, like the greatest rock and roll band that I've ever heard.
Good.
Yeah. I know that's sort of like, well, like that's how they're sort of set up. Like that's what people think Van Halen's, but like, I never heard that, as I did my research and listened to this and saw what people were saying and understood the sales, like it started to become more aware to me. So I don't necessarily think I'm letting that play influence on me, but when I listen to these songs, like, and the way everything comes together, like, I mean, they're just great. Like they're great. Like I that is my own personal opinion in listening to these songs. Yes, sure, there's some influence. It's influence on anybody, on anyone when it comes to listening to a band of this stature. But I agree. They are like, they're not overrated. They are not looked at as, underappreciated. Like, no, they are at this point, and from what I've heard, the best rock and roll band.
Wow. Better than Aerosmith?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean,
see, that's interesting though, right?
Yeah.
Because as we go, so you can say, okay, I know Aerosmith now, I know Van Halen now, and then maybe we go to like Led Zeppelin.
Well, yeah, we could totally do that. I know we mentioned. I know we mentioned Sticky Fingers last week, or did we?
Oh, we did. I had kind of floated that across Sticky Fingers at one point, or Exile. So what you and I will do is we'll figure out what the record should be. My suggestion is, I would say, like either Exile or Sticky Fingers.
Why don't we leave the audience in suspense, and we'll come back next week with either Exile or Sticky Fingers. How does that sound?
I like that a lot.
I think that sounds fun.
I like it.
Great.
All right.
So cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Cheers to you and those like you.
Yeah, my man. That was a big glass.
So, okay, so hold your glass up. Look at your eyes. I know. So I can tell that you drank the whole glass. Look at your face right now.
It's just the camera, man.
Yeah, it's the camera.
It's the camera.
It's always the camera.
How do I?
Oh, you just knocked one of your teeth out, for Christ's sakes.
Did you
Jesus.
hear that?
I did. I heard that.
Okay, Brent.
Good Lord.
Time for me to go to bed.